This monk build is one of the best invoker monk builds in the game. It has nearly 4 million DPS and very fast clear speed, which makes tier 15 maps a breeze. Don't believe me? Then watch this +4 Zesh kill. What's going on, guys? Today I have my final iteration of the CI monk build. This iteration continues to use double heralds for ice and lightning explosions for clear speed, and we've ramped up the boss damage to over 4 million DPS thanks to crit bonus stacking. With nearly 50% crit hit chance and 900% crit damage bonus, this will make pinnacle bossing a breeze. As always, I've included a link to the Mobalytics, MaxRL, and Path of Building in the description, and let's get into the video. So my Chaos Inoculation monk is using Ice Strike as its main attack due to its high DPS and its ability to freeze enemies. Freezing is important as we'll be using Combat Frenzy to help us generate power charges. Combat Frenzy will generate frenzy charges whenever we freeze, pin, or electrocute a target. We then use Resonance on the passive skill tree to turn frenzy charges into power charges, which allows us to use Charge Staff. Charge Staff will boost our DPS and allow us to shoot out projectiles when attacking. These projectiles will shock enemies, allowing us to proc Herald of Thunder. We'll use Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice to shatter and call down lightning bolts on enemies when we attack. This will make mapping easy and effective. Bossing is made easy thanks to Tempest Bell. Tempest Bell takes 4 combo to use. We generate combo by hitting enemies with Ice Strike. We then drop the bell on a target and it sends out a shockwave when we hit the bell. The shockwave will deal physical damage and elemental damage based on what element that is hitting the bell. Since we're using Ice and Lightning, the bell will chill, freeze, and shock with its damaging shockwave. This will allow us to stun bosses and melt their health with little effort. Our defenses are also strong due to using Chaos Inoculation combined with Energy Shield and Evasion. Chaos Inoculation makes us immune to chaos damage, which is one of the most potent damage types in the game. This will include bleeding and poison. The drawback is that it sets our health to 1. We can circumvent this problem by building an Energy Shield, which is a layer of defense that goes over top of our health. This will act as a shield, keeping us from dying. This becomes even stronger when you combine it with Evasion. Evasion will give us a chance to dodge physical and projectile attacks. This does not include spells or big slam attacks, so make sure you watch out for those. Now that I've explained the basics of the build, let's get into the skill gems and support gems. So we're going to have Unbound Avatar here. Unbound Avatar is from our Sensi tree, and we're going to be using this to give us a 40% boost to our elemental damage briefly. We're going to run Persistence to increase the duration of Unbound Avatar. We're going to run Lightning, Cold, and Fire Mastery to increase the level. The higher the level, the longer the duration. So all of these work in here. I'm using Ice Strike, which you can see my base DPS right now is at 347,000. I will put a clip in of me getting over 1 million DPS right here whenever I'm mapping, and I will get to the details of the Path of Building and how we have over 4 million DPS later in the video. So if you want to skip ahead to that part, go ahead and check the timestamps. But without further ado, we're going to go back into the support gems. We have Martial Tempo for more attack speed. We have Concentrated Effect for more area damage. We have Inspiration for less cost of Ice Strike. We have Heft for more maximum physical damage. And we have Primal Armament for more weapon elemental damage. So I have Tempest Bell. This is our bossing guy right here. We have Overabundance. That way we can drop a second bell. We're attacking so fast that we're able to drop a second bell. So it's a great increase the DPS. We have Rage. So that way whenever we hit the bell, we'll get 3 Rage to increase our DPS. We have Font of Rage, that way we're going to also get some extra rage just by placing the bell down. We'll have Heft to increase the melee physical damage. The 10% less attack speed does not affect the Tempest Bell, so this is a great gem to put here. And we have Leverage, so that way our skill has 50% increased crit hit chance against immobilized enemies. This will include frozen or stunned targets, so the bell will be critting very often. It already has a base crit chance of almost 50% right here, as you can see. So once we get that increase right there, it'll be super easy to crit and deal a ton of damage. We have Charge Staff right here. This is what we're using to buff our damage up and also make sure that we're shocking. We have Culling Strike right here. Culling Strike will allow us to kill rare or unique enemies earlier than intended. So 5% for uniques and I think 10% for rares. We have Overcharge, which is super important because magnitude of shock is important for increasing our elemental damage. Whenever you shock an enemy, if they have become shocked, they take more elemental damage. The higher the magnitude, the more damage. So this is a huge node to take right here. We have Conduction to increase our chance to shock. We have Shock Siphon, so that way whenever we're mapping, this will allow us to recover 4% of our energy shield whenever we kill a shocked enemy. So if any reason we're not at overflowed ES, this will heal us for free. And I'm running Unbreakable in the last slot, so that way we have 200% more stun threshold while we're using this skill. So while it's popped and we're using it, we should have increased stun threshold to prevent us from getting stun locked. If you don't have the 6th slot, you can leave this out. So we have Combat Frenzy. This is what we're using to generate Frenzy charges, which are converted into power charges to fuel Charge Staff. We have Perfusion to give us a chance to generate an additional charge. We're running Herald of Ice. We have Magnified Effect for a larger area of effect. Innervate, so whenever this kills a shocked enemy, we'll get extra damage. We have Lightning Infusion to allow Herald of Ice to do lightning damage, and this is important because we want Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder to be able to chain off of each other and proc each other. And I'm running Long Shot for increased attack damage the further away it gets. The explosions will chain out so far from you that you'll want this extra bit of damage right here. We have Herald of Thunder. We have Cold Infusion, that way it is being infused with cold damage to also proc with Herald of Ice. We have Ice Bite, so that whenever it kills a frozen enemy or freezes an enemy, whenever it freezes an enemy, you will get extra damage. We have Ambush, so that way we can get some more crit hit chance on full life enemies. As this is chaining outward, they're going to be full life. We want that extra crit hit chance. And we're running Lightning Pin, so that way the lightning damage that this does will pin enemy lightning resist. This is an extra one. If you don't have the slot, you can slot something else in here or just leave it out. So for the defensive ones right here, we have Wind Dancer. This is huge for increasing your evasion. Make sure that you're qualitying it, as once it reaches the max quality, you get an additional stage. So an extra 19% more evasion. I think this may bump to 20 once you hit level 20. I have Blind, Pin, and Maim in here, so that way if I do get hit, the explosion that goes off will blind, maim, and pin the enemy that hits me. It gives me a chance to get out of there. We have Grim Feast on. Grim Feast is going to overflow our energy shield. Whenever you kill an enemy, it has a chance to drop this little remnant. If you pick it up, it'll recover some energy shield, and it can overflow you up to double. I have Clarity in here to get some extra mana regen. If you don't have the Spirit, you can leave this out. And I'm running Blink for movement right here. So a lot of people complained about not having enough movement speed. They talked about adding Flicker, but I didn't like Flicker because of the charge generation, and working with it, it can sometimes put you in a bad spot. So we have Blinks, that way we can teleport. You are going to be running Ingenuity and Arcane Tempo. It does have a cast time, so making sure that the use time is as low as possible is nice. Right here, cast time 0.45 seconds. Otherwise, it is 0.56. So this does reduce that cast time. And Ingenuity for a quicker cooldown, so that way we can blink more often. This does replace your dodge, so you will no longer be dodging, you will be blinking. So this is the mapping setup. I will go ahead and get into the bossing setup. It is a bit different than what we see here. So the bossing gems are just a little bit different. All that we do is we take out Grim Feast and replace it with Ghost Dance, because we're not going to be killing things during a Pinnacle boss fight. So Ghost Dance will allow us to have an extra defensive layer whenever we're bossing. You can slot Clarity back in here. We throw on Elemental Invocation, and this is extremely important because of Eye of Winter. So I pick Elemental Invocation over Cast on Shock or Cast on Freeze because we freeze or shock so often that it will actually proc too often and spam too many of these, which will drain our mana really fast. So I've done Elemental Invocation so that way you can press a button and use it whenever you feel like you need to. So that is important here. Eye of Winter is going to be inflicting critical weakness, and critical weakness is extremely important as it massively increases your crit hit chance on a target. So with us being around 50% crit hit chance, once the maximum stacks of critical weakness are on a target, we have nearly a 80 to 90% crit hit chance with our Ice Strike. So this is extremely important for doing as much damage as possible. I throw a Scatter Shot on here, so that way it slings out an extra 2 of these Eye of Winters to apply more stacks. I have Impetus, that way we get increased energy, so this way we can pop more of them more often if we want to. And then Energy Retention, so that we have a chance to refund half of the energy that we spent, so also that we could spam it more often. If you have the extra slot, you could throw Deceleration on here, so that way the Eye of Winter moves slower, so that way you can apply the stacks a little more efficiently. But I personally don't feel like the Perfect Jeweler Orb is worth it right now for how much they cost. You can still keep Blink. I turn off Herald of Thunder because you don't really need it since we're not going to be killing shocked enemies. It is important to have Herald of Ice turned on because of a skill in the passive skill tree that we're using. It is right here. It is called Coming Calamity. We get 50% increased cold damage while affected by Herald of Ice. So while it's on, we're getting 50% increased cold damage. So we want to make sure that we leave that on so we get that bonus. We do lose a slight bit of damage because Herald of Thunder is turned off, but I think the defenses outweigh the damage that you would have done anyways. So now that I've gone over the support gems and skill gems, I'm going to go over the gear, and it's important that you pay close attention to some of the things that I talk about here. Please don't just skip over this briefly, as I'm going to break down how our damage is so high right here and how our damage is scaled to almost 4 million DPS whenever we're bossing. So what we're doing differently this time compared to the previous time is that we are stacking crit damage bonus incredibly high. So on my Ice Strike right here, you can see that I have 827% and nearly a 50% crit hit chance. So that is a huge multiplier for getting our damage extremely high. So on my quarterstaff, what I've done this time is I've gone for crit damage bonus down there towards the bottom. I've kept the physical damage high, I've kept the increased elemental damage with attacks, and I've elected to go with a quarterstaff that has 3 sockets, so that way we can socket in these 3 soul cores, which will increase our crit damage bonus by 36%. This is huge for increasing your DPS. My old staff, whenever I bought it, was I think 25 div, and the market price of it whenever I went to go sell it yesterday was around 50 to 75 div. This one I bought for 14 div. You can snipe these really easily on the market. If you want, go watch my video where I talk about path of building. I'll probably make another video here soon explaining how exactly I hunt down weapons and stuff like that to give you these upgrades. But this right here, the crit damage is huge. So same thing, I've gone for crit damage bonus on my my amulet right here, and this is also like another huge DPS boost. If I take it off, I mean, you see there's about a 50k difference with just that amulet right there, including storm charge allocated on it. So it's important to make sure you're getting things with crit damage bonus. So we got HOAs on. HOAs are important because we are stacking our stats kind of high. We have right now 329 dex and 226 intelligence. So with that, we have a ton of increased attack speed and added lightning damage to attacks thanks to HOAs. You can make this work without HOAs or ingenuity, but the damage won't be nearly as high as you see here. You can see that we lose quite the chunk there. And if I take off the ingenuity, we lose quite a chunk there. I'll go ahead and take off both to show you what that looks like. That's still a nice, you know, almost 200k without having on a pair of gloves or a belt. So still respectable even without them. If you don't have them, you can definitely make do, but this is important if you want to melt bosses as fast as you see in the video. So we have ingenuity, of course, too. We are getting increased bonuses from our rings, and I've also got a corrupted one with increased evasion to increase our defenses a bit. This is important. The higher you go, the better the damage that we'll be getting, because on the rings, we have elected to go with added flat damage, increased cold damage, and attributes. So the attributes are increased by ingenuity, which are buffing up our HOA and a couple of nodes on the tree. So same for this ring. I've gone for flat damage, increased cold damage, and my resistances. The ingenuity is boosting the amount of resistances we have in our rings. It's helping us fill out our capped resistances right here. On the boots, I've gone for 35% move speed. You can do 30 and still be fine. I'm doing an EV-ES hybrid. I have maximum mana to increase our mana pool, and I've filled out my resistances as best as I can here. On the chest piece, I have just a really high ES body armor. I have added intelligence for more damage. I have fire and lightning resistances. On the helmet, I've gone for a hybrid as well. I have EV-ES, so that way we have a nice amount of evasion. The better, honestly, having more evasion felt great rather than having a couple hundred extra ES, because just dodging an attack rather than getting hit and spammed and stunned was so much better. But I've elected to go for a crit hit chance to increase that damage. We have added intelligence so we can stat boost a little bit more, and I have some lightning resist. On the amulet, I've gone for a lapis amulet. You can do a jade amulet if you want as well. Honestly, any amulet works, but if you can get a lapis or a jade, you'll boost your damage a bit more here. Same thing if you want to do a stellar, but I have increased evasion rating and increased maximum energy shield, so that way our defenses are increased by a nice amount. If I was to take this off, here's our current values. If I take it off, there's those values, so it's a nice increase that we can get to keep us from dying. I have max mana for mana pool, and I have increased crit damage bonus for some extra DPS, and then the 2 attributes right there as well. I've allocated for storm charge. That is the best thing for DPS that we can get at the moment. It is going to be increasing our elemental damage whenever we dealt a crit hit recently, and we are going to be getting increased crit hit chance. Another good one that you can allocate with is Barbaric Strength. That will increase your crit damage bonus. I've done damage testing on Path of Building, and Storm Charge is better overall, but if you want something maybe for cheaper, you can go that route. If you want some increased defenses, you can allocate with Patient Barrier to boost that ES a bit more. I have the Melting Maelstrom Mana Flask. This is going to give us a instant recovery on our, let me take off inspiration to make this a bit quicker for you guys to see. If I just hit my Mana Flask, it is going to instantaneously recover that missing mana, so it's great for if you're bossing and you're depleting your mana really quick, you can just pop that for an instant use. I have just a really high healing life flask, and I'm running a stun charm. If you're fighting Zesht, you can throw on maybe like the freeze charm or something, but this is just great for keeping you from getting stun locked whenever you're mapping. So with that broken down, let's go ahead and get into the passive skill tree. So here we are at the passive skill tree. I will break down the jewels towards the end of getting through here. What I'm going to do is zoom out for the people that want to just look and copy. So I'll come up to this section right here and let you guys copy. I'll give you a couple seconds. All right, and I'm going to go down here to the lower section. Okay, that is the lower section right there. I'll give you a second to pause and copy. And there's the ascendancy tree right there if you didn't see it in the beginning. Okay, so for the ascendancy tree, what I'm doing this time different from last time is we don't swap with meditate. Our damage is so high that I'm killing Zesht before he can even get in to do anything, and we have a pretty solid pool anyways. If you don't have the DPS while you're getting into his fight, let's say that you know it takes you about a minute to kill him or so, you can swap off Unbound and put this on, but my burst DPS was enough to kill him before he could even get off any like big attacks. We're running Lead Me Through Grace right here. This is important to get us the necessary spirit to have, 231. The more ES or EVES that you have in your body armor, the higher the amount of spirit that you'll get from this. We have Eye in the Blizzard right here to get extra cold damage right there. You can see that the DPS boost from that is quite heavy, so make sure you're getting this. It will also create chilled ground whenever you freeze enemies. The small nodes are magnitude of chill and elemental damage. Get some EVES increases right there. And we're going for Sunder My Enemies. This is incredibly important for massively bumping your damage, because what's going to happen here is whenever you crit, which we do very frequently, you ignore enemy monster elemental resistances. So let's say the monster had a 50% elemental resist. You would have only done 50% of the damage that you were supposed to, but if you crit, we're going to ignore that and do 100% of the damage that you're supposed to. So this is super important for boosting your DPS. So for the passive tree, it is just about the same gist. I've moved things around slightly. I've pulled some nodes and I've elected to go for Essence the Mountain for the extra cold damage and freeze buildup. You can see that it's a pretty solid DPS boost right there. We also get the pull down the right here to get some more movement speed, some mana regen, some dex intelligence. I pick up these nodes right here for increased damage if we crit recently and crit hit chance. We have skill speed and mana regen. Make sure you get these for the defenses. I go right here for more crit damage bonus. It is a better DPS than just going for flat attack damage. So we grab the crit node right here, so that way we get increased crit damage bonus if we dealt a non-crit recently and more crit hit chance. Same thing, crit damage bonus right there. We've gone for some crit nodes right here. I would go this way, but I save a point by just getting that one right there to get to this big node. And I scoop up these nodes right here to increase our ES a ton. I then path out this way, we get Killer Instinct, so that way we are always considered on full life when at 1 HP, so it's 30% increased attack damage, and we have some more attack speed right there. These nodes over here are huge for getting a ton of crits, so we got Dex, Crit Chance, we have Intelligence, Crit Damage Bonus, and you want to pick this one up here because you're going to get 20% increased increased damage if you dealt a crit recently, versus just 10% crit hit chance. So pick that, boom, right there, some extra damage and crit chance. I go up this way right here. Oh, sorry. Make sure you get resonance too. We need resonance. So that way we can generate our power charges. Right here, we got reduced cost of skills and attack speed. So pick these up. And then these nodes right here for defenses. We then come over here to get Eternal Youth. This will allow our life flask to heal our energy shield. So this is great for a panic button if you need to heal. We path up this way. We nab up the crit nodes right here. We get this Thin Ice node right here because 50% increased damage with hits against frozen enemies. Whenever we freeze a boss, boom, 50% increased damage. Here's Chaos Inoculation, and I branch right here to get this last jewel node. We then come down this way. We have some more crit nodes right here. We then come in over here to get all of these nodes. We have attack speed, and then we have increased crit damage bonus and dex. Make sure that you are picking the chance or the damage bonus. I've elected to go with chance for this last one right here because it was bumping my hit chance from like 38 to 44. So pick these right here to get more crit. I come down this way. I get Common Calamity for the increased cold damage while affected by Herald of Ice and the increased lightning damage while affected by Herald of Thunder. These nodes right here will also just increase your damage while affected by Herald. I pick these crit nodes right here. Strength, make sure you path this way to get the crit damage bonus rather than hit chance. get this node right here and this node right here. I then come out this way and down, so that way I can have this jewel right here, the controlled metamorphosis. It will allow you to pick nodes that are within this ring. You have to spend the skill points to pick them directly. You don't just get them for free in this ring. But we get Maiming Strike for increased attack damage and chance to maim on hit. We get Escape Velocity for movement speed and increased evasion. We get Falcon Technique for increased attack speed per 15 dexterity. You can see that's a huge increase, and then we get 25 dexterity right there, and then we nab up these melee nodes right here. I toyed around with the melee attack speed, but this one felt more valuable because the higher you go in attack speed, the faster your mana gets consumed. This was better on the DPS calcs on Path of Building. So now I'll go ahead and break down the jewels. Like I said, I'm using this controlled metamorphosis. It is important to try to get one that has as little of a loss of elemental resistances as possible. The all elemental one is important. The chaos does not matter, so try to get that one as low as possible so that way you don't lose a ton. I've elected to go with crit damage bonuses on the jewels. If you can try to get crit damage bonus and crit hit chance, that's great. Another really underrated node that not a people are really paying a ton of attention to is the increased magnitude of shock. Like I said, the higher the magnitude of shock, the more elemental damage that we do. So Path of Building actually calc this out as being a like massive increase in our DPS. So this is important to try to get these if you can. So this one right here, same thing, crit hit chance, attack damage, damage with quarterstaffs. I could go more crit damage bonus and magnitude shock here. This node, I've gone with the increased maximum energy shield and the 2% mana on kill. I would try to have at least 2% mana on kill. That way you don't run out of mana whenever you're mapping. And for the last one, I have increased cold, crit hit chance, and crit damage bonus. So that way you get a big boost to damage right there. So now that I've shown the gear, the support gems, and the passive tree and the jewels, I want to show you how exactly we are getting nearly 4 million DPS. So this is Path of Building. Path of Building will allow you to input all of your gear and input your bonuses that you get to calculate your defenses, your damage, your resistances, everything for you. So I've imported my tree here. I have imported all my skills. I've imported my items. And what you can do is you can add certain skills to your DPS calculations right here. So I've added my main skills to my DPS calcs. We have Ice Strike, the Culling DPS that happens from Culling Strike and everything else, our Shockwave from the Charge Staff, and Tempest Spell. So that all right there totals up to 3.7 million DPS. And you may be wondering, if you're doing this yourself, why yours isn't getting that high. On the calculation, you need to go to the config. I have a normal and a buffed. So here's my buffed one. I have put in all the bonuses that I will be having whenever I am fighting a boss. This includes things like rage. This includes things like the critically weak. This includes the magnitude of your shock. So it's important to put these things in here to calculate how much total DPS you're getting. So this isn't a perfect system. I probably have over this amount of I probably have well over 4 million because it doesn't properly calculate Unbound Avatar. It doesn't properly calculate Innervate and things like that. So it is missing a bit. It also doesn't let us calculate and sunder my enemies. So I probably have closer to like 4 or 5 million DPS. But this is what's being shown right now. I don't want to advertise any higher than what is currently being shown. As it kind of updates, I'll kind of see what it kind of pushes to. But make sure you're putting in, what's happening. If you're immobilizing, if you're maiming, if you're blinding them, are they frozen? Are they shocked? What's the magnitude? The critically weak. Make sure that the stacks are included on there. Let me make sure that this is actually enabled. I don't think that would affect it. Okay, yeah, we're good. I want to make sure that wasn't actually cutting our DPS there, but since it wasn't enabled. Yeah, make sure all these things are checked off. Make sure that you have your Wind Dancer stacks in here so it can properly calculate, your ES, your EV, and all that. But this is a great tool to input all of your stuff into and toy around. I was able to use things like the trade for these items to find better jewels, find better gear. This helped me improve my DPS without having to meticulously think about it myself. I was able just to kind of go through, click find an item, hit execute. It will send me to the trade site. I'll then pull the trade site up, and I was able to take an item. So I'll just take it by the largest sum. I'll take this one. I can copy it. I can come over here. I can paste it. I'll make it rare. It doesn't really matter, but I'll add it to the build, and I can swap it. And you see my DPS right here, 3.7. If I swapped it there, it would result in around the same 3.7. So this is a great way, or sorry, Quartz Pile is the one. 4.3. So if I was to get that staff, that'd be a big upgrade right there. So this is a great way to go about checking your DPSs and finding better gear for your build. So use this tool to the best of its extent that you know how to use it. I'll try to make a more in-depth video on breaking it down here soon, so that way you guys can maybe understand how to use it a little bit more efficiently. So with that, I'll go ahead and get into a demonstration of how the map rotation works. So here I am in a map. I just started. You will start hitting some enemies and you'll generate some power charges. You'll then pop your charge staff and you can then just watch your heralds pop and shred everything. So all you pretty much do is run around, you keep your charge staff topped off, and you just smack some things. If you come across a big rare or something, you can drop your Tempest spell on them. If you absolutely need to, you have your Unbound Avatar in your pocket. You can use this stuff for the map boss. You don't need like the elemental invocation and stuff for the map boss. You will be killing them like within the matter of like 4 seconds. So I'm running my normal mapping setup, no Eye of Winter, no any of that. I just kind of run around and smack things. Use blink so that way you can teleport around and move a bit quicker. If you get hurt, pop your flask. If you run out of mana, pop your Melting Maelstrom. That way you can keep yourself up. But that's really all it is. It's really simple. You just run around, you click like 2 buttons, and you just kind of delete and move around really quickly. So yeah, really simple. So yeah, it's really simple. That is the build right there. I do want to emphasize here at the end about how important it is to get your crit chance as high as possible and your crit damage bonus as high as possible as well. If you start to fall off on these stats right here, you will notice a big dip. So if you're wondering how you're not maybe getting as high as I have here, that may be the reason why. Also check your jewels. Make sure that you're getting enough to attributes that is important to stack those up. Use Path of Building to see what you can improve yourself with, you know, and make sure you paste those things in there before you buy them. Make sure that if you're running out of mana that you are running Inspiration. This is my normal strikes right here. You can see my mana consumption. If I was to take off Inspiration, this is what it would look like. So it's much more, it drains much faster. I would also try to make sure that you don't have a level of melee skill. So here's a amulet that I have right here that I thought about running for the video. It does bump my damage from 347 to 388, but the one downside to it is that it has +3 level of melee skill. So watch my mana. If I hit, drains pretty fast. If I was to take off Inspiration and try to run this, that is what my mana consumption would look like. So I would make sure that your staff and your amulet does not have level of melee skill. That will increase that mana consumption a ton. It's important to not be doing that whenever you're doing pinnacle bosses, because you may deplete your mana too fast, especially if you don't have the Melting Maelstrom. So yeah, that is going to be it for the video. I appreciate you guys watching. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section. Leave me some tips and tricks. This will be the last iteration of the CI Monk. So this is it for now. We're moving on to bigger and better things. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hopefully will see you in the next one. Take care.